So sometimes when it feels like you're on your own and the troubles are too much for you to swallow, that is when God steps in and tells you, my daughter, my son, I am here for you. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming back. If you are new here, my name is Felicity and I make faith-based content here on YouTube. Please join the family by subscribing, click on the notification button, share, so that whenever I post videos like this, you'll be one of the first people to receive it. Thank you. So today I want to talk about the topic, God sees you. God sees you. I know sometimes when we are going through troubles, when we are going through trials, when life becomes difficult, we tend to think that we are alone in it, because human beings don't stick with us. We think God doesn't stick with us either. So we tend to think, well, I'm alone and no, God doesn't see me and he's sleeping on me. When is God going to answer me? When is God going to appear in my situation? You know, but today I'm here to remind you that God sees you. So in Genesis chapter 12, we meet Abram and Sarai. Their names had not been changed yet. God says, leave your father's home and follow me to a place that I'm showing you. He didn't know where God was taking him, but he packed his things and followed him. Fast forward to chapter 15, and then we meet Abram again. God was having a covenant with Abraham and says that I'm going to multiply your descendants. I'm going to give you a son, and this son is going to inherit you, and I'm going to multiply your descendants. Fast forward to chapter 16. This man is growing old. He has been faithful to God. He has walked righteous before God. He has no children. His wife was getting old. She had getting to the menopause age, and this woman was getting desperate. Probably her mates were asking her, when are you going to have a child? Because I know in our community, once you get married, they ask you, when are you going to have a child? If you have one child, they are asking you, when are you going to have the second one? If you have the second one and it is the same gender, they are going to ask you, when are you going to have another one? Because you need to have a boy. If you had a girl, you need to have a boy. If you have two girls and a boy, they are going to ask you, when are you going to try again for another boy? So the questions never end, right? So I can only imagine what Sarai was going through at that time. Sarai had no children and she was getting to an age that was considered old, and she didn't know what to do. She was desperate. So probably watching people taking the same names that she had planned, because women, well, once we get married, we start noting names down, the names that we are going to give to our children. So when you sit in the church room and you keep on hearing people picking the names, and then you have to go back to pick another name and then somebody else pick it, it gets frustrating. If it was today, people will ask her, have you heard this prophet that is giving miracles, right? And this lady was getting desperate, basically. So she went to her husband and said, listen here, man, I know God has promised us that we are going to have a son, but look at me, I'm getting old. So when am I going to have a child? I need to have a child. That is when we meet Hagar. Hagar is a slave girl. We don't know where she came from, but we know that Abram and Sarai went to Egypt, right? Because there was famine on the land where they were staying. So they went to Egypt. And when they reached there, Abram told Sarai that because you are too beautiful, we have to make up a plan. When you get to the land, when we go to Egypt, and the Pharaoh there is known to be picking people's wife, and you are too beautiful, so if we don't lie, they are going to kill me, and he is going to take you as a wife and he will kill me. So let's lie to them and say that you are my sister. Okay, in some way that is a lie, but that is also truth, because we know that Abraham is half sister to Sarah. That was before those things were broken. So don't go and marry your sister or your brother. It's not done anymore. So they lied, and the Bible says that the king, the Pharaoh, took Sarai in as a wife. So he went, and then later on, God revealed to the king, the king that is Abraham's wife, give his wife back to him. And the king was angry, so he sent them a packing. So the king gave them gifts when they were going. According to theologians, they said that when the king was giving them gifts and things, he gave them Hagar. as one of the things to take along with them. And that is how Hagar came into the picture. That could be true. So Hagar is a slave girl living in Abram and Sarai home. She is a young girl, probably in her teens, 18, 19, or probably 17 or early 20s. She has no children. She's not married yet. And the Bible says that Sarai got desperate and approached her husband and said, honey, I'm here and I want to tell you something. Listen to me carefully. So you know that God has seized my womb. I can't have a child. And you know the promise that God gave to us. So what we are going to do is that you are going to sleep with my maidservant and she is going to have a child. And the child is going to belong to me. I don't know who told Sarai this lie, that another woman is going to have a child. She's going to sleep with your husband. She's going to have a child and she's going to give the child to you. I don't know how that played out in her mind, but somehow she convinced herself. She went to her husband and the husband also agreed. We know from Genesis in the beginning that when Adam listened to Eve, we know what happened, right? And the second time, we see another grandpa listening to his wife, Sarai, and we know what is going to happen. So Abram listened to Sarai, and what happened? He slept as a maidservant. He took her as a concubine. And to me, the intriguing part of the story is that as a woman who has 3 children, I have 3 kids, and I know how difficult it is to, the pain, the discomfort, for you to go through to have a child. You know, when you are pregnant, you can't sleep, you have heartburn, your body changes and you gain weight, everything about you change. Your breast is not sitting where it's supposed to sit and everything becomes different, right? And this lady, nobody even consulted her because he didn't matter. Because to them, she was just a nobody. She was just a slave girl. So she was given to Abram. The man was old, was over 80 years. The Bible says that when she saw and she got pregnant, when she saw that she was pregnant, the Bible says that she despised her mistress, Sarai. Could it be that she would despise Sarai because she realized, first of all, you didn't ask for my opinion, you didn't ask for my permission, you took me and then gave me to your husband, and now I'm pregnant. Now I'm not just a maidservant, but I'm carrying a son. Something that you couldn't do. You know how women we can get, right? Something that you couldn't do. Probably she was, you know, laughing at Sarai, mocking her or something. So the Bible says that Sarai got angry. She was pissed. So she went to her husband and said, may the Lord judge between me and you. I gave you my maidservant, and when she realized that she is pregnant, now she despises me. So Abraham again said to Sarai, she is your maidservant. Do unto her as you please. And if you give a woman, a wounded woman, a woman that is already going through some things, first she couldn't carry a baby, her maidservant is pregnant and she's now despising her. She's bitter. You give a bitter woman the opportunity, the privilege to maltreat another woman. We know how the story is going to end, right? So this woman, Sarai, maltreated Hagar until she couldn't take it anymore. When the Bible notes something harshly, when the Bible notes something, then you know that it's something that really happened. It's even worse than what happened, right? So the Bible says that Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she couldn't take it anymore. So one day she packed her things and then she said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired. Look at it carefully. She started it, right? Because when she saw that she was pregnant, she started despising her mistress, and that is where Sarai got angry. So sometimes, you know, in life we will put ourselves in situations because probably we are naive, young, not knowing what we are doing, and we put ourselves in situations, and when people see that you brought yourself, they say you brought yourself, they start to punish you, they start to talk about you, they start to maltreat you, that look at her, you brought yourself. So the Bible says that Sarai treated her so harshly that she couldn't take it anymore. So she packed her things and she left. When she was leaving, she reached a place in the desert and she didn't know where she was going. A pregnant lady who has been treated so harshly to the point that she packed her things, probably had no food, no water, nothing. She was going. The Bible says that the angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, Hagar, maidservant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? Note, up until this point, we didn't know Hagar's name. We only know her name because Moses told us, the writer of Genesis told us that her name is Hagar. But up until this point, Hagar, nobody knew her name was Hagar because Sarai referred to her as maidservant. Abraham referred to her as a maidservant. They all called her maidservant. So her name was non-existent. Nobody knew her name. She was incognito. Until the angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, Hagar, Hagar. It is so amazing when God meets you at the point of your needs. It is so amazing that people will forget your name. It is so amazing that people will put labels on you. People will call you maid, slave, a sinner, this and that, adulterer, a fornicator. They will call you by your mistakes, but God calls you by your name, the name that He has given to you. And when God called her and gave her promises, not only did God call her, but God said, where have you come from and where are you going? Note, 2 questions, right? God asked her 2 questions, but this lady only knew answer to one. She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress. Because she knew her past, knew where she was coming from, but where she was going to, she had no idea. That means that she knew her past, but she didn't know her future. She didn't know if her child was going to live. She didn't know if she was going to live for one more day. She didn't know if she was going to deliver successfully and have her child or not, because she didn't know her future. She didn't know what the child was going to end up to be like. But God knew it. Could it be that God was doing His usual rounds every morning, went to the house and realized that Hagar was not there and chased after her? When Hagar left, Abraham, the man that impregnated her, didn't go after her. Sarai, the woman that took her and gave her to her husband, didn't go after her. Her fellow maidservant didn't go after her. The servants in the house didn't go after her. But the Lord chased after her and called her by her name. And not only did He call her by her name, but the Bible says that He gave her promise to her. You are going to have a son, and his name is going to be Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. Ishmael means that the Lord has heard your afflictions. And he's going to be a wild donkey of a man. His hand is going to be against other men. So that means that he's going to fight against other people. And Hagar, for her, a maidservant, somebody that was given as a slave, means that her whole life she has been slaves. Probably her mother was a slave, probably her father was a slave, her grandfather was a slave. So for her to hear that my son is going to be a wild donkey of a man, his hand is going to, even though his hand is going to be against other men, I don't care. This means that he's going to be strong. He's going to be a wild donkey of a man, so he's going to be strong. He's going to be courageous. He's going to be somebody who is notable. So now a slave girl, her son is going to be known. Her son is going to be wild and he's going to be strong. So for Hagar, even though that seemed to be like shaky, for me, if I'm going to have a son and somebody says that my son is going to fight other people, I'm going to be worried, like, who wants to have a son that is always fighting, right? But for her, for a slave girl who is coming from nowhere, who has no future, a son that is going to be strong is everything to her. So the Bible says that she got so happy. She was so happy, and she said to the Lord, the angel of the Lord, you are the God that sees me. El Roi, you are the Lord that sees me. People didn't see me. Nobody saw me. My family didn't see me. They didn't consider me. But you are the God that chased after me. You are the God that sees me in my affliction. And you hear me. And because of that, you named my son. And you have given my son a future. And a woman that had no future, now I have a future. So she named the Lord and said, you are the God that sees me. And God said to her, return to your mistress. And she returned. If it was me, I would have said, well, I'm not going to go back there because people are going to laugh at me. My fellow maid servants are going to laugh at me and say, yeah, look at her. She went and now she's back. Isn't that what we do to people when they come back to us? Yeah, look at her. She had nowhere to go and now she's back. We will even maltreat you harsher than how we did. But the Bible says that the woman didn't care. Hagar didn't care anymore. Because this time she was going back with a promise in her womb. This time she was going back with something tangible because she had met the Lord. And the Lord had seen her. The Lord that sees you. So sometimes when we go through troubles and we think we are alone, I just want to remind you that the Lord sees you. In your troubles, probably going through divorce, probably going through marital issues, probably going through job loss, going through job search, going through financial problems, going through troubles, right? Thinking that you are all on your own. Nobody sees you, that God has forgotten you. But I'm here to tell you that God sees you. Because if the Lord chased after the maidservant, a mere slave girl that nobody considered, a mere slave girl that nobody saw, then he sees you. He chased her in the desert and he gave her a promise. So Hagar returned home with a promise in her womb. Now she knows that her child is not going to spend a day being a slave. She knows that even though she was a slave girl, even though she was not known, her child is going to be notable. The son is going to be counted. Even though he is not a promised child, it doesn't matter to her, because for her, she has met God and God has changed her story. So it doesn't matter the stories that we have. The moment we meet God, He changes our story. That is why it is so important for us to seek and have a relationship with God, because we can know God by our mothers, our mothers call God. We can know God by how our fathers call God. But the moment we meet God and we know Him, we give Him a different name. But the name that how He met us is how we are going to call Him, right? Of course, God gave Abraham and Sarai a promise, right? Even though it took longer, but the promised child came. So the lesson here is that we have to wait upon the Lord. When God gives us a promise, we have to wait. Of course, it seems like, yeah, it's easy for you to say wait upon the Lord. But waiting upon the Lord is so, even though it seems so difficult, even though it seems like it will never, the things that we are asking God will never happen, it does happen. The waiting season as well. We all go through waiting season in our lives, because there are some things that we ask God and He says, you know what, I want you to wait. And we have to wait. Whether we like it or not, we have to wait. I can't stress this enough. We have to wait and wait well. Whilst we are waiting, we have to wait well. We don't have to wait like Sarah, where we are waiting, but we are finding solution to our own problem. We have to wait well and obey God. Because it is in the waiting that God tests our character. It is in the waiting that God glorifies Himself, right? If we wait well, He glorifies Himself. Because we know that in the end, Isaac came, the promised child came. It took longer, but the promised child came. So it is my prayer that you will not wait too long for your promise, that your promise will come to pass as soon as possible. But even if it doesn't come to pass as soon as possible, but even if it doesn't happen as soon as possible, it is my prayer that you will wait, that the Lord will give you the waiting heart for you to wait upon the Lord.